Hello and welcome back to the Realonomics channel. My name is Kareem and today I'm going to answer the question, why did I write a book about economics? Well, it certainly wasn't to make money. Apparently wizards is the correct subject for that. But I wrote about what I know about. And it's best summed up in this chart, which a friend sent to me yesterday. And if you look at this chart, what you can see is that in 2024, 1/3 of men and 22% of women aged 20 to 34 are still living at home. Now compare that to my parents' generation or even my generation. By the time we hit our mid-30s, we were married, we had kids in school, and we very definitely owned our first or maybe even our second home. Now, I left home at 18 and I rented like many people do when they first set out in life, and my flat cost me £520 per calendar month, but this is for a flat in London that had 3 bedrooms, so we were able to split that cost 3 ways, and it cost us just £40 a week each to live in London near a tube station in Zone 2. That doesn't exist anymore. To get a 1-bedroom flat in that area would probably cost you about £1,500. Well, you can't split that cost 3 ways. So no wonder people are choosing to stay at home with their parents longer. No wonder the age of a first-time buyer in the UK is now 34 years old. The dream of forming your own household is becoming unattainable for many people. It's fair to say that our economic system has become an existential threat to society if 33% of young men are just checking out and not taking part anymore. Now, why is this happening? Well, our current economic malaise of low growth, high inflation, insane house prices, crappy real wages, and excessive debt everywhere is a policy choice. It's a policy choice that's been unwittingly foisted on us by well-intentioned but miseducated economists. People who went to university like I did to study economics and were taught that money, credit and banking can be safely ignored because money is just a medium of exchange and it doesn't play any real role in economic decisions. But in 2008, we saw how reckless lending by American banks caused a massive bubble in the American housing market, and when that bubble burst, that brought down the banks, and then that crisis spread because of the necessity of credit to other businesses. That crisis spread throughout the entire economy. And yet still today, universities are teaching economics undergraduates that money and banks don't play any role in the economy and can just be ignored. This is absolutely dangerous fantasy. So, why did I write Realonomics? Well, because it doesn't have to be this way. Answers to these challenges have actually existed for decades. Irving Fisher, for example, wrote about how money, credit and banking was responsible for the Wall Street crash which led to the Great Depression in the 1930s. Irving Fisher wrote about this in 1933, and if only economists had listened to him, we could have avoided the GFC in 2008. But instead, in the year 2000, Ben Bernanke was pretending that somehow the Great Depression was this fantastic mystery which remains a challenge to economics to solve. It was solved in 1933, Ben. You just ignored what Irving Fisher wrote because Irving Fisher wrote about money, credit and banking, and your job, Ben Bernanke, is to run cover for the banking industry. So in Realonomics, I draw together ideas from those that I consider to be the world's greatest economists, people who've looked at the real world and understood how it actually works. These are ideas that are not taught at university and are completely ignored by the mainstream. I also analyse history's most successful economies, for example Japan, which grew at 10% per year every single year from 1945 to 1973 without a single recession and with virtually zero inflation. Now, we can model that success. We could have, in Britain, an economic miracle of our own. We just have to copy the same policies that created it in Japan and also created it in South Korea, and also created it in Taiwan, and also created it in China since 1979. You see, every country that adopted these policies has found that they worked. There's no example of these policies actually failing in practice. So why don't economists learn? Well, it's because they've been miseducated in economics at university and they're just not open to new ideas. But if we model the policies that have created success in other countries, we can tame consumer inflation overnight. We can tame house prices. We can boost growth. We can make Britain a better place for businesses and startups. We can decouple economic growth from our ever spiralling debt. And we can fix our government debt problem so that Rachel Reeves stops taking your money and doesn't have to tax our economy into oblivion, which is the current path that we seem to be on. So what can you do, you might be wondering? Well, buy a copy of Realonomics. Read it. Understand it. It's super simple. It's all written in plain English and common sense terms. And then book an appointment and go and see your MP at one of their constituency surgeries and give him or her a copy of Realonomics and explain to them why you think they should read it. And if enough of us make our voices heard, if enough of us promote these ideas to the people that actually have the ability to change things, then maybe things will change. What I can guarantee is if we do nothing, nothing will change. So please join me in this mission. Help me to try and get ideas that work, that have been proven to work, into the hands of people that actually can put them to work. Thanks very much for listening. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.